All right, our next speaker will talk about making media work harder with dynamic content. She lives and breathes dynamic creative optimization. For over 10 years, she has been focused on bringing the best new advertising products into the market. Prior to joining Cognitive Match, she led the Smart Ads program at Yahoo, working with top marketing partners to grow demand for the dynamic creative optimization program into the fastest growing product line at Yahoo. Natalie also led market adoption of advanced targeting products and rich media solutions while at Yahoo. Prior to that, she was part of the DART Motive team, bringing DoubleClick's rich media solution to market. Natalie has also held roles with AutoTrader and IACI. Natalie serves on both the Ad Technology and Data Councils for IAB. Natalie holds a Bachelor of Science in Advertising from schoolmates, University of the Illinois. All right, the Senior Vice President for Marketing and Partnerships of Cognitive Match. Let's all welcome Natalie Kubitz.
Thanks. Thank you. Had to fly all the way here to find somebody from Illinois.
Good morning.
Good morning. Almost. I think it's middle of the night-ish. I want to talk a little bit about how to blend better the efforts that are made for in audience and creative in order to get a better return on investment out of media. And somebody mentioned, or there were a number of good points that were brought up today that I think we'll talk about a little bit. But the question is, how are you actually going to draw people in? How are you going to inspire that initial engagement? How are you going to create the meaningful connection to a brand? And what is that next piece of efficiency? So a little bit about Cognitive Match. We are about 35 employees, a small company, headquartered in New York with offices in London and Palo Alto as well. We have run campaigns globally, including all through North America, Europe, and Asia. We're focused on dynamic creative optimization, and some people may be more familiar with the terms of data-driven creative, and across all of the brand touch points, including on-site and in ads for new users and retargeting. So we have a great management team, a great advisory panel. We're really a blend of art and science. So about me, that was a very long introduction, so I don't think there's anything that's new up there, but my passion is really about taking all of these efforts that have come about in terms of effectively and efficiently finding media audiences and blending that with a great experience for brand and consumer. And I joined Cognitive Match in 2011 after leaving Yahoo to continue to tackle some of the challenges I think still exist in the market, including how to more effectively use data throughout the ecosystem, the challenges around campaign strategy and deployment, because if any of you have had any experience with dynamic creative, people say, I love it, but, and there's always a big but in there about the challenges around planning and deployment of campaigns. And then insights, because I think that when we have data that's being effectively used from beginning to end, it's important to have a plan for how that comes together to teach you about your audience. So the rise of sophisticated media systems, be it through premium publishers, DSPs, networks, has led to a fascination and fixation on who and where consumers are and how you go and reach them at any moment. But that's come at a cost of really giving consideration to which messages will influence whether or not a person, a specific individual, will engage with that ad. And there are many, many data points that can be used in order to help predict this. I think that the term you used earlier was superbrain, so I may steal that one. But functionally, what we're looking to do is to create systems that are superbrains, that can understand many data points beyond whatever was used to target an audience in order to really understand in that moment, in that context, based on all the other things that are going on in their lives, such as time of day of week, is it raining, is it not, is it, are they a man or a woman, any other pieces of information that we can glean in order to help display the actual best ad that drives an improvement in engagement. And instead, in most cases, although dynamic creative as a concept has really been around for 5 years or so, maybe a little bit longer, the adoption levels are still relatively low. It's seen as a bit of a nice to have. And what you end up with in many cases is overly repetitive, generic messaging that is actually harming the connection between a brand and a consumer. And I will blindly use an example, but a few years ago I had a major marketer ask me to find women with 2 children in the house of relatively high incomes who tend to shop midweek for their family groceries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just for giggles, I decided to do this, advanced targeting, and came up with this nice audience, and they sent over the ad, and it was like brand name lunch meat. Well, what was the point? Right? That wasn't relevant at all. It had nothing to do with all of the other attributes that they knew about the consumer, let alone what we can know in real time to help put out a great ad. The other part about relevant creative is that most people think, oh, I'll just retarget you. It's all about retargeting. I'll wait till you get to my site, I'll pay attention to what you do, and then I will follow you all around the world trying to get you to buy whatever you shopped for. But it's also bigger than that. As a matter of fact, I think the biggest opportunity is around new user acquisition. How do you actually use the people you know could be your consumers but have not yet engaged? And then how do you actually continue that conversation with consumers once they have decided to actually become one of your loyal customers? So a few marketers that we work with at Cognitive Match, and some of these are our media partners as well as the brands specifically. But what are they looking for? What are we seeing? In my career in this topic, we've consistently seen that when you're using data to flow through to the creative, that you're seeing doubling the click-through rates. You can see 2x to 4x% improvement in conversion rates. Yield goes up if you're talking about a bidded environment, which is actually win-win for everybody because publishers are being rewarded for great inventory where there's data available in order to make better decisions. Consumers are being rewarded because there's a better connection with the brand. So, that's what we're talking about when we say, how do you make your media work harder? If you're spending X dollars today, and you get these kind of results, you're now getting 2x, right? You're spending functionally half. You can really make a major step. And I'll also say that in my experience, we've had the DSPs or ad networks or whomever come to us and say, let us work directly together, and we'll go out and put this to our advertisers, because the pressure from the market has really been, show me the next cheapest. Show me the perfect audience, but the next cheapest eyeball. And they understand that there's a limit to the returns that can come there. And so what is that next piece that comes together to make it efficient, to balance the investment we're making in audience and in creative and for an optimal outcome? So a quick case study. This was a consumer electronics company who had a specific product primarily geared to women. And their point of view was, we know who our audience is, we know them. Well, their research showed the opposite, that the people they think should be buying from them, it was totally falling flat. They didn't understand the opportunity and the benefits. So what we worked with them is to get them to understand, how do you transform very, very generic, gender-based messaging into a true relevant brand conversation by considering the key needs and the profiles of the groups underneath. And then how do you evaluate all the data in real time that we have about a consumer in order to create all the creative elements together? And the results were a 400% increase in click-through rate for them, and some insights that they could use, which were that while actually there was a big sway when people were talking, when the messages were relating to working moms and reclaiming time, that that also meant that in real time we had to be balancing the message on a per user basis based on time of day. So as opposed to trying to manually think that through and then arrange a media plan around it and day part and miss out on a certain amount of scale because you're hyper targeting, we were able to look at their entire audience and deliver an efficient campaign. So we all know data is a powerful marketing tool. I mentioned some of the reasons that people are using it, right? From new user acquisition to site retargeting, as well as CRM efforts, which I find to be the next emerging trend, is really understanding that continuing conversation between brands and their consumers. But in my opinion, what I've seen is that data is shutting off at the most important moment when the brand is talking to the consumer. And so even when you have a well-defined audience, you end up with this generic creative. And smart marketing says that actually the pressure should be on the ecosystem in order to make data continue through from audience to value of the audience to the creative delivered in order to have the best experience for brand and consumer. So there are a number of different tactics that you use within data-driven optimization, but it can be as basic as A/B testing, creative testing, rules-based delivery. I'd be remiss if I didn't use the McDonald's example, but time of day, or weather-based. Whether to show morning meals or afternoon meals. There are many, many examples from especially the quick service restaurant industry. And then the true data-driven machine learning, which is where any different element in the whole ad might change based on the selection of assets and what we know about the user. So there can be far more permutations, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. But then the interesting part is, what does it show you? Yes, results. That is very important. But understanding the performance means understanding what drove the response at the other creative level or the sub-creative level, the element level. And so in this very simple example, let's just pretend that you had, you were a finance company and you decided to target people of a certain income in order for your new product. You ran a campaign, you had 10 creatives, they all got a 1% click-through rate. Did you fail? Historically, especially the advertisers will say, yes, that was not a worthwhile investment. From a creative testing standpoint, I could pick any one of them and come away with the same result. But that is not true. I've time and time again shown that when you understand the attributes of what was driving the response based on the user, again, factors like age, gender, geography, time of day of week, environmental factors, everything, you can start to see that each one had peaks and valleys, and I call it sort of, all boats rise. In theory, if you're doing it right, almost all of your creative examples or selections should be performing well, because in any given time, there can be the right fit for a user. So it's very interesting because not only are we doing that to inform the current process, and the machine is always learning and giving the best results, but it's also informing future market strategies. There was a similar example to that was real, where this company thought that they were really doing a great job with their target customer. They knew who they were, they knew what they wanted to say. But when you turn the data, it says, actually, what was really performing were the people who ended up being their lowest lifetime value customers. And there was a whole different response out of a group that they hadn't even understood before. And that was the one that was not really getting what they wanted was that middle group, and it was the CMO. It was like, this is what I need to see, right? This is the kind of information I need in order to make sure that we are actually capturing that end user that we really want. Another quick case study example. So I feel like this is a conversation I have all the time with clients, but how to improve both the quantity and quality of leads. This was for life insurance policy quotes. So in this case, this is a great example of where they kind of wanted to throw everything at the campaign, multiple layouts, multiple messages, brand positioning, product positioning, and a potential incentive, a promotion included. So we helped align the campaign, We helped align the campaign in order to test the different permutations and maximize the data inputs that were relevant for that client in order to say what's really driving things. And the outcomes were too long to fit on my slide, sorry. So I simplified some of them, but there were huge differences. Even things like the product positioned with a certain color and the incentive performed outstandingly different in the afternoons than it did when it was a product position without an incentive in the day. So the kind of things that they're interesting, but you can't hyper plan like that. You need a super brain to know it in real time and to do something about it. So I've talked a lot about PC, given my experience. The adoption of this in mobile is really just starting to sway, but it's going pretty quickly. I see so many similarities, though, which are really the fragmentation of audience as well as content, where more than ever, the user will determine any interaction with a brand, and brand blindness is at an all-time high. And then the evolution of creative from static to dynamic. So I've had my stints in rich media as well, but I feel like in both the web and in mobile, you have an experience where it was very static content, very static generic creative. Then you had relatively static content and these big intrusive ads, right? It's gonna fly across my screen and it's gonna roll over. I have to I have to do something. And it's right in the middle of my experience, which had its fad, I think, on the PC and is definitely more of a corner case use now. Then you had dynamic content and irrelevant ads, which is still sometimes there, but I think it was born out of that programmatic buying launch that we've had and the birth of the ad networks and the DSPs, where you actually lost control over the environments a little bit. So even trying to plan for relevant creative was a challenge. And now, we need to be at a place where the content, the experience a brand is having related to their moment in mobile or on PC is as great as that experience for them when it comes to relating to a brand. Especially because, and I've read this sentiment in a number of different articles, but brands are now literally in the hands of their consumers. They have an unprecedented opportunity to make that connection with the consumer. And for that reason, I think mobile really has the opportunity to leapfrog PC in terms of great ad executions, great responses from consumers, and increasing loyalty. It does take a smarter marketer. You have to understand how to create a meaningful, in banner, in most cases, experience. How do you make that connection? And so, again, data fuels a lot of it. So how do you get that moving? Data. First, even the smallest piece of data, like a user location, can do wonders in terms of allowing for optimization of messages. You can pull weather, you can pull time of day and day of week, you can pull all sorts of environmental information just by using a location. In addition, the mobile media suppliers have become very interested in saying, okay, I'll raise my hand. How do I let more of my audience segmentation flow through? How can I signal, to the ad server, in our case, what are some attributes about this audience that you can use to optimize, because they understand that the more data that continues to flow through, the better the ads will perform in their environment. So then you need to be able to also use technology to do this. You need to be able to build these experiences seamlessly and easily and deploy them and optimize and add in new messages and take out things that aren't working and schedule promotions and have all sorts of an automated system that's working seamlessly with your plan. So, it's important to be working, agency or a partner in order to create a system that becomes a flexible framework for a brand to succeed. And then finally, one mobile case study that we did with our friends over at Mobext. So thanks for having us here. We worked on a campaign for the UK lottery, the regular lottery and Euro Millions, to test a number of existing creatives or creatives that have been designed for this campaign to truly understand what was driving both the best mobile conversions, or mobile clicks and mobile conversions. So we did a couple different things that were a little unique to mobile. The first one was we sort of culled the list of potential creatives right off the bat in order to determine the ones that actually had the greatest amount of variations, because very small differences are not going to yield great gains. So we culled the list, and then we also created a system for our algorithm that said mobile is so fragmented still, but a pixel off or here or there because of all the different operating systems and device types. can screw up optimization. Basically, it treats them separately. So we were able to write a program that says treat them only as the creatives they are, ignore all other factors except for your device type. That was different. So what we were able to show in the short campaign this fall was click-through rates for every size, an increase in conversions on the Euro Millions business specifically, and then respectively 20 and 12% over different sizes for the Euro Millions campaigns, as well as some good creative insights that that Mobext and Camelot can use together in order to do future campaigns. That's it. That is my summary.
Thank you, Natalie. Can you join us here for a few questions? All right. Questions from the audience? There are 6 mics there. Probably around 70–80% of the theater is still full. I'm sure you have questions. Or shall I call names of people I know? Mitch Padua of Smart.
I'd like to get your thoughts on sort of the new ads that are coming up, things like sponsored posts, sponsored tweets, where it's more a bit conversational as opposed to what we see on display or static advertising. I mean, what are your ideas on that, and how do you work all these types of cognitive or content matching?
Yep. That's a good question. Can you hear me? I think that those specific 2 instances you mentioned, sponsored listings and on Facebook and on Twitter specifically, both have great potential. If it's an example where I'm eager for them to move faster in opening up these kinds of technology. Facebook specifically has only been dabbling in any sort of dynamic content or even changing content up until recently, this past quarter, which I think is, it's moving too slowly. It's missing that chance to leapfrog, because you really need to be able to take what we've already seen work better and put it into these kinds of experiences right away. I know that since they're doing the testing, they've been seeing great gains, but it seems like an easy connection for brands to have to have more relevant conversations. And instead, what the requirement is today is to pre-build every specific instance, have them all manually reviewed, and then schedule each one against a specific person. And that's just a outdated, I think, piece.
All right, thank you. Sir?
Thank you. Christian from Youth. I have 2 questions. One is on the optimization of this testing. I mean, what you've been describing, of course, makes totally sense, but how much of it is automated really? How much is manual testing as well? I mean, between different creatives? Is that system up and running, and who can use it? And second question, well, I'll let you answer first.
Okay. The first one is a good one. So how does the optimization work? Each company's approach is a little different. So I've worked with other dynamic creative partners during my time at Yahoo, but I'll speak directly to ours, which is twofold. It is always on. We have online machine learning that is seeing the real result and redeploying. We also have a unique feature, which is that we do offline machine learning too. So we're always digesting that information and running new algorithms against what would have happened. And if we ever find a slightly different algorithm that would have yielded better results, it'll redeploy to the campaign. So functionally, as a campaign is running, it's getting its own custom algorithm built, right? So you're always understanding what would work. And that includes, one of the biggest reasons in investing in that is to be able to overcome or to tackle the challenge of trending so that you understand you're not building one predictive model about what's going to work, but actually seeing from day to day, week to week, month to month, and specifically in retail, that's very important. But what's really driving response?
Okay.
The second part was...
Second question
okay.
is a slightly different one. It's about rich media
yeah.
advertising formats, because we had the question about new ad formats. I mean, the majority of mobile ads is banner ads right now, and they're static banners and they get static landing pages for many reasons. But do you see or have you researched around static banners which lead to a rich media ad and which already kind of indicate that there's a rich media experience coming? Is that helping to improve the results, especially then the post-click engagements?
Yeah, so mobile has some unique, unique factors that need to be taken into account. Number one is that it's not really a scale issue, but the differences between the experience on mobile web and in-app alone is a challenge, and how you might want to plan a campaign and what you might want to say and what that ad experience is going to be. The majority of inventory and the majority of demand is centered around in-banner regular ads. So getting that right, I think, would be a big step forward. The second most popular format, though, is a banner ad that has some sort of a push down or come up kind of functionality. So we're definitely exploring those two things tied together. The area where, give you an example, I actually saw mine, I had nothing to do with this, but there was a Citibank experience that was, the ad itself went to a much deeper, sort of rich post-click experience that was not a landing page. I can call it a rich media ad, but it was always just from the banner. And this banner then is what they were optimizing. I thought it was very interesting that they understood, even though they have this post-click experience, they were really doing a good job of doing some optimization while the end experience was still the same. So, yeah.
Yeah, because they have kind of on the banner already to indicate somehow to the user that there is a richer experience beyond than just a normal landing page.
And as I think was talked about before, I remember in the Mobi presentation, but call to action. Yep, we should definitely see which call to action's working, and it should be tied to the experience that's coming next. But that is only one element of what can be an entire ad experience. And so it's important to have in mind sort of all the different things that might be able to drive that engagement. And I'll tell you, on mobile, context means a lot, right? So in terms of how you might want to position a brand. So that it does make sense. We often work very close with the advertisers to understand exactly what that media buy looked like so that we can help them plan that ad experience better.
All right, thank you. More questions from the floor? Yes, sir? No, just kidding. It's just, picking up coffee or something. Any other questions? Yes, please, introduce yourself. There's a mic there behind.
Hi, I'd like to know, with the campaign you did with the mobile, did you work with the telco? And if you did, or if you wanted to, what are the data points would you be looking for, or would you ask from the telco?
In this case, Mobex is the agency, Camelot was the client, the media partner was StrikeAd, who we work closely with. So they sent us some data, but we really were looking mostly at geography as the pinpoint, because we were pivoting off of that for things like time of day of week, user location, et cetera.
The user location was derived from the GPS,
right,
or from the operator?
Yes, but we're getting it through the DSP.
Okay.
Yes. Now, what's interesting is that we want to be able to get all those things, but the data that influences that on the back end then is the lookup, if you will. Is it, not in that case, but is it raining? Is it cold or is it warm? Is it that all sits on our side? It's not necessarily something that needs to be fed into the system. We're just looking it up off of the location.
More questions? Follow-up, Vince? It's okay. All right. With that, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Natalie. Very insightful.